Right. So, people, I did watch uh, Sheikh Hamza Yusuf with Jordan Peterson, much awaited, people. Right. So, I got the impression that this podcast was done back then when it was announced. This is the impression I got, and it was only released now. So, I don't know what that's about. Why did Jordan Peterson? Maybe it required certain editing. I don't know. Yeah, I'd not been feeling too well, shaking off a flu, a man flu, people. So, um, I don't know if are we allowed to say man flu. I don't know, people. Cancel culture. Yeah, I have to say this is right. So this, yes, let's focus, get back on track. Yeah, I watched the discussion. I'm glad they changed the title, by the way, because the first title I saw it just again today, and the title was changed to something like "What We Can Learn from the Quran" or something like this, which was a much more apt and suitable title. The one before, something like a Catholic's conversion to Islam after a near-death experience or something, was, yeah, that was it didn't it was a bit naff and didn't really do it justice. But the discussion was yeah, it was I thoroughly enjoyed it. There were certain parts I felt that it there were things I wish it went into more, and there were certain parts that it did cover with some depth. It was the first time I heard Sheikh Hamza Yusuf speak about his conversion, um, or the kind of landscape leading to his conversion, his near-death experience. I'd never heard of. Um, I don't know if he has mentioned it before, but it was the first time I heard that story. Also, quite some detail about Sheikh Hamza Yusuf's kind of family background. I didn't realize his. He spoke a bit about his mother, the role of his mother, his father having converted to Islam, and just some detail about them and how they have added value to his journey. I didn't. So that was definitely something very intimate, very personal. He spoke about them passing away, and both his mother and father passing away, and how he was there for it. So that was something very personal and intimate once again. So it was very. I mean, for me, because I'd not watched that before. So maybe some of you had heard of that before, but I hadn't. So that was very revelatory. Um, yeah, and then Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, as always, is just so, his breadth of knowledge is so vast. Just the kind of net he casts out there. So that was so refreshing and captivating. He spoke of several people, their reasons on what led them to Islam. I did think that on the flip side, uh, the discussion was dominated to a certain degree by the whole conversion aspect, which I guess then it's a kind of cost expense of the talk, because the time of the talk is naturally limited. It then disallowed the talk to spread into other topics of faith that could be, there's so many topics on faith, and it would have been so fascinating to hear how do these both thinkers tackle these things, from topics like, I mean, just so many, from atheism to the problem of evil to religion in the world today. I think at one point Jordan Peterson tried to bring in evolution and say, well, how do you reconcile that? And that was Hamza Yusuf. Sheikh Hamza Yusuf didn't really tackle it. He says, well, guided evolution, and then he says, well, I believe, like, and he gives reference to a certain particular poem, and he says you can find it you can Google it. So discussions like that could have been also very fruitful. So I think on one hand, because the whole topic, or the topic of Hamza Yusuf's conversion to Islam became such a dominating theme that it took up most of the discussion, and thereby disallowed the opportunity for other important themes and topics. So that's I guess on the flip side, I did think some of the talk felt like it was somewhat speech, as in not obviously, if I say speech, it doesn't make sense, but somewhat lecture-like. So it seemed as if there were certain parts where Sheikh Hamza Yusuf was, and it was amazing and elegant, and and eloquent, and once again very enriching, but it felt like Sheikh Hamza Yusuf would go into a like he would drift into almost like a lecture, like a sermon, like segment where he would speak about the wonders of whatever the point of discussion was, and he would do that for a little while, and then Jordan Peterson would kind of chime in, say something, and then he would go off on another. And although that is unquestionably captivating, but I felt what it took away then was the interaction, because there's something about a conversation that I felt it didn't have. I mean, it was a beautiful interaction, and it was a very harmonious interaction, which is definitely amazing in its own way, but it didn't seem like, this is to me, it didn't seem like a conversation. It seemed more like just orating a particular point and just speaking, and then being asked another question, and then just responding to that. And so there was definitely a harmony, and there was an amazing interaction, but it wasn't quite like natural speak. So I felt that where's what you might see on, for example, Joe Rogan, you get a lot of that natural interaction. So you see the person. It just, I don't know. I just felt this was a point that I felt it didn't have that. Not to detract from it, it was still amazing. So, but I'm trying to just share my evaluation of it. God, my throat. Other than that, I really appreciated the way Sheikh Hamza Yusuf firmly asserted his faith. He wasn't kind of shy about it, and that was quite refreshing to see. So there's a point where there's several points, but on one occasion where Jordan Peterson is speaking about how Islam can be complicated and how it's difficult trying to grasp another culture, but Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, um, n- not in an uncouth way, but he kind of pushes back on that, and he asserts that actually no, for an intelligent person, Islam is actually very simple. And then Jordan Peterson says, "Well, why don't you explain it to me?" And says, "I'd love to," and he explains it. And I thought, well, that's that was definitely something very admirable. Another thing is where another example coming to mind is Jordan Peterson mentions at a particular point about he says, well, you see, in one way of looking at God is like a hierarchy of values, and ultimately you have an ineffable value, which is God. And so Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, he responds to that by saying, look, let's be clear, we don't believe in God as a value. God is not a value, he is God. And when he says that, Jordan Peterson then says, of course, no, I don't mean to reduce God to a value. This is why I stressed ineffability, which is, that you can't describe in words. So that, I thought that was very admirable, that the way Sheikh Hamza Yusuf stepped back and asserted his point in saying, well, as opposed to just letting it just flow, which he could have, and because that's him, Jordan Peterson speaking about his own perspective, but he says, look, no. And also the part where these are certain points coming to my mind that are like striking features. There was a point in the discussion where Jordan Peterson mentions that he says, well, I don't understand how Muslims come about the topic of Christ, because he says, well, you've got Judaism, and then you've got Christianity, which then asserts the divinity of Christ, and then how do Muslims come back from that, and how do they reconcile? They say, well, Jesus is still central to Islam, but he's not divine, and so on. And Sheikh Hamza Yusuf actually answers that very well. He says, no. He says, well, look. He says, well, according to most Jews, Christ was a charlatan. So, and according to the best of them, he says, well, he was just a rabbi. But according to most of them, he was a fraud. So, and he really puts it out into perspective that, well, actually, when you're looking at it, that you've got going from that angle to this extreme peak of divination, and then you've got Muslims who have a maqam of venerating Jesus, alayhi salam. So it's not actually, it's actually very logical and very rational. So that, once again, there were so many amazing features about the discussion. I do wish, in certain ways, if it could grapple with other topics as well, that topic, because it seemed to, you see, to me, on the flip side, because if I had to, let's say, if I had to critique, not to criticize, but to critique certain aspects, I would feel that the topic was very dominated with a very Christian talk. So, which is fine, because I get it, because Jordan Peterson is a Christian, and many of his following, I'm sure many of his followers are Christian, or although I'm sure not most of them, but still many amongst them. And so it had a lot of this Christian and Christ talk. to find maybe that common ground. Maybe what they were trying to do was bridge. I mean, that is what they were trying to do. They say in the end, we were trying to build bridges. But there wasn't much talk of the challenges of, let's say, atheism or disbelief, in the face of, atheism, that both, whether it's Christianity or Islam, that believers find, whether it's going to be the discussion of free will, whether it's going to be the discussion of the problem of evil, whether it's going to be the discussion of, I don't know, other things that people, common militant atheists may have, problems they may have. That would have been very interesting, but I get it, that would be also very difficult. There was a point where they spoke about consciousness. That was good, that was interesting. Sheikh Hamza Yusuf did say, and he spoke briefly about the neural correlates of consciousness. So to me, overall, I definitely enjoyed it. Thoroughly enjoyable, so much to learn from it. I'll probably give it something like, maybe like an 8.5 out of 10. Yeah, maybe like an 8 or an 8.5 out of 10, which is definitely fantastic. It's just the discussion on the Christ like talk, or the Christ topic, or the Christ theme, just seemed very dominating throughout the whole thing. And I get it, that may have been purposive, and maybe that's what Jordan Peterson wanted from the discussion. But I just feel that I as a person, as a keen, ardent fan of both of them, I would have just wanted so many of the topics discussed, which inshallah maybe in the future they would do. But I'm not saying this in any, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm saying it in a way, just my appraisal of it, what I saw of it. And in some ways, I just felt that I don't know, sometimes you looking forward to something, and when it happens, it is amazing, but then maybe maybe the realism of it just doesn't, it's like like something's not, like I said, maybe it was the fact that conversation spirit, that it didn't feel like a conversation for some reason to me. I don't know why that is, and I don't know whether that was just me, or if other people felt that. It felt a bit like an interview, but not much. So maybe that's why. Yeah, so that's just my trying to find some, my appraisal of it. So yeah, but overall, amazing. If you haven't watched it, you have to watch it. I'm sure it must be, it's definitely has to be the best so far talk that Jordan Peterson has had with any Muslim. So you have to watch it. And it is a meeting of, the titans, really, these people. This is like, it's like in many ways that WrestleMania 6, for the old timers, those old souls like me that remember from the childhood days when it was Hulk Hogan and an Ultimate Warrior. It was like WrestleMania 6. It was like, whoa, what's going on here? So, and even WrestleMania 6 is exactly, it's like it's such a hype, and then when it is, it's like there's something missing here. But yeah, so people, that's my thoughts on it. But if you haven't watched it, do check it out, and I hope they have many more of this to come. Yeah. Another point I was going to say is I did feel that that it was a bit harsh on the leftists against the left, and I agree on the fact that you have the like the militant left. I agree with that. I mean, as in, because that, in a way, the militant side of any side is always, it's not. It's it's basically just streaks of fascism on either end, but th- there did seem this air of just there were certain points where they just dissed people just for having like leftist thought, um and there was this thing of I don't know why they feel you see, I'm not a Marxist, and I mean, I'd say socialist. Socialist isn't the UK just socialist? So socialist just means that you look out for people, as in there should be public welfare. So I'm definitely socialist, and I would agree with that. But I'm also very capitalist in believing that people should make money, and there should be opportunities to always make money. But I don't understand there's this era of almost contempt or of hatred towards like Marxism and stuff like this, held as it is demonized. So I don't understand that. I'm not a Marxist, and to be honest, I wouldn't really want to live in a Marxist world. I definitely an ethical capitalist world would do fine, as long as it has socialist values of a welfare system, pretty much like the UK, I would say. But I don't know what Boris Johnson's doing to it right now. But yeah, so but in the discussion, there were a few occasions, and I've noticed this in other discussions as well, where both Sheikh Hamza Yusuf and Jordan Peterson seem to really demonize, like the demon incarnate is Marxism. So I don't know what that's about. A good friend of mine, Momo, he seems to be really passionate these days about Marxism. So I'll have to get him one of these days on Mindtrap to understand what's I don't know what the hype is about Marxism, but I don't know what I don't understand the evil thing either. So to me, I get it. It's a bit too idealistic, and I couldn't really see it in a real world scenario. But I don't see the evil thing about. If you see my point, I just see it as a failed idealism. That's all. But yeah, so that's another little point. I did see a few jabs there as, oh my god, then we would just have a Marxist world. What the hell would that? And I thought, whoa. I thought, calmate, calmate. Huh? I thought, just take it's. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it, people. So Jordan Peterson is right wing. I don't think he's right wing, as in he's definitely not far right, but I think he's right aligned. Yeah, I don't get that part, but I think there's this thing about and I do sense this from Sheikh Hamza Yusuf as well. They seem to I think it's more an American thing, that they feel that traditional conservative values of the Western world are somehow the default position of of the standard of ideal living. I, I don't know where that's from, because that doesn't. I mean, I'm not against the traditional conservative values of the West, but it's not I mean, I don't know about idealizing them either. I mean, sure, it's like anything, it comes, it goes. So I think they seem very anti uh, anything that questions, so they seem to be very anti liberalism, which I don't understand either, because why And then I think we have a difference in mustalah, because I think we use the words differently. So everybody in Europe and in the UK, liberal is a good word. Liberal here means people who speak up for rights and speak up for, and I think in America they use it to mean somebody, something else. So it's very, there's a difference in mustalah. It's all terminology, people. It's all terminology. Yeah. West doubles. Somebody said Jordan Peterson comes off as a person with a lot of fear. Right, and I'm not okay. Could be. I'm not sure what that means. Is Mufti left or right? I don't know. I would think I'm. I don't know. I would think. You see, to some people, it's interesting because some people think I'm more on some. See, I think it's difficult placing someone all the way, because on some things, when some of my mates say, "Oh, Mufti, you sound just like these." These the right on some of it's some of my mates say as a joke. Oh, but yeah, but in some things I get it, that yeah would be, oh, but isn't that all of us, that in certain things it's difficult placing people? But I would have thought I would be center left, if anything, because I would support freedoms and I support people's rights, and I believe in less authority to the state and more freedoms to people. That's what I believe in. Um but then I don't know, because then when people say all these things like 100 pronouns and in all of this, I disagree. Like I just I so in that stuff I agree with. Things should just be as they are. I don't believe in just because you identify as 100 different pronouns that people have to call you different and they have to memorize all these things. And so this is why I think maybe on that discussion my mates have said, oh, I don't know, but to me that's just common sense. It's not like I'm not against people's their own things, but imposing it on other people. and and I and and I do strongly disagree with this whole cancel culture thing, which is just a cancer in and of itself. Yeah, Salam. But let's move on, people.